Hey everybody! Today we're going to be speaking about a topic that really focuses around relationships. Keep in mind that strong and good relationships are one of the keys to having a really successful life. And the specific area that we're going to be talking about today is how to form common ground with other people that you might meet within your life. Common ground is important because all of us are somewhat social animals. We form bonds with other people. We establish relationships, and that really is the fruit and really the joy of being a successful human being. And so what we're going to talk about is how to get started establishing that common ground, which then becomes the basis for relationships within your life. What do we mean by common ground? What we're basically saying is finding something in common with somebody and finding that basis for the relationship, which allows you to connect in some healthy way. And my contention is that you can form common ground and that common bond with somebody very quickly. I believe you can do it in 30 seconds or less. So for example, I believe you can form a common ground and a common bond with somebody, that might even be a checker at a grocery store that you're at, such that you can go through the line and while they're checking you out, you can actually strike up a short conversation and understand some common ground with that person. I've done this in some of the classes that I teach, where I've demonstrated that I can establish a common ground with each one of them, and I can do that with every single person in the class in, let's say, 15 or 20 minutes. And so in that way, I can get to know them very quickly and have that common ground with them. How do you do this? What are some sources of common ground? Some possibilities might be some common taste in music. It could be sports. So you might like a similar sport, or you might even like the same team. There could be other things like food, and there might be some common ground in maybe your favorite type of food, or a restaurant that you like, or maybe a restaurant that they could recommend to you or you could recommend back to them, vice versa. It could be some kind of hobby, coin collecting, woodwork, sewing, knitting, whatever it might be, right? There's all kinds of hobbies that you might have of interest that they might also. And by the way, it could be a hobby that they have that maybe you don't particularly like it, but you have a sibling or a mother or father who really enjoyed that hobby. It could be something like travel. What's their favorite place to travel to? And maybe you've been there, or maybe you want to go there at some point, and you can ask all kinds of questions about that. It might be the school that you went to that you might have in common. It could be the subject that you studied. It could be that you both have kids, or you have siblings, or really anything, right? There's so many different facets to people that make people interesting that it really just requires that you take an interest and you establish what that common bond might be. So one thing that I would recommend is that you avoid controversial subjects. So don't talk about politics. Even though you might have it in common, that's probably not the first thing that you want to talk about, because as we all know, politics can be very divisive if you're on opposite sides of the aisle. So what are some of the benefits of forming the common ground? Well, first of all, once you establish that common ground with somebody, you'll never forget it. And every time that you see that person, even if it's a week or a month or a year from now, you'll go back to that common ground. You'll say, yeah, I remember you. I remember that we liked the same baseball team, or that, you and I, we went to the same school, same college, even though it was years apart. That allows you to have that common ground with them, and allows you to use that as a way to build the relationship from there. So this is really the start of building a stronger relationship, and allows you to go back to that common ground as a way of just revisiting that and knowing that you have something in common with that person. Let me just give you an example of a situation that I had. It's just one of the many examples that I have. So picture this, right? I went to Hawaii with my family, and one of my sons was going to be flying home early. And so he had a flight that was like at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that meant we had to get up early. We had to start heading to the airport right around 6:30 in the morning. Well, what happened was, it turned out that on that same day, there was a half marathon that was running. And in fact, the half marathon looped around the condominium that we were staying at, so that the car that we couldn't get an Uber to come in. We had a rental car. So we actually had to find a way to get out of that loop where all of these runners were running around and every single street was blocked off to allow these runners to go through. So we were getting kind of worried, right? It's like, how are we going to get out of here? We ended up getting in the car, we drove off, and we see that there's this kind of plainclothes police officer that's there. So we get out, and what I see is that on his car, on the license plate holder, it says San Francisco 49ers. And so I walked up and I said, "Hey, are you a Niners fan?" And he said, "Yes, I am. Why do you ask?" I said, "Well, I'm a Niners fan too. I'm from Northern California. Love the Niners all my life." And so we just started talking about the 49ers, and turned out that he liked the same players that I did, and we were all kind of from that same era. Later on, he revealed that I was from Northern California. He said, "Yeah, I've been to Northern California, and I've got some friends in Davis and all that." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's not too far from my house." And so we just struck up this conversation and formed that common ground. Later on, we got to talking, and I said, "We're really in a bind here. My son's trying to get to the airport, trying to figure out how to do that." And he said, "Okay, well, let me radio over. Let me see how much longer the runners are going to be going, and maybe I can direct you to a path that will get you out and then to the airport." And so he did that. Gave us a perfect path, gave us the timing, all of that, such that we were able to get out of that circle of all of these runners and get my son over to the airport. This is just one example, though, of many that I can think of, maybe hundreds that I can think of, where just very quickly establishing that common ground and the basis for that relationship allows you then to kind of grease the skids for the relationship and allows you to then move forward in a constructive way. I would encourage each one of you to practice this, and you can do it everywhere. You can do it on the golf course. You can do it at the grocery store. You can do it meeting the person that you're dropping your car off to get repaired. You can form this common ground, and through that be able to establish the basis for a relationship, which then makes the whole idea of working together so much easier and so much better. So I hope you'll take this advice and move forward in your life to start forming this common ground as the basis for really strong and productive relationships. All right. Thank you very much, and take care. Bye-bye.